Have you ever felt the pain of betrayal? That moment when someone you trusted turns their back on you and everything seems to fall apart. Have you ever faced injustices that made you question whether there was a purpose to so much suffering? If so, know that you are not alone. The Bible tells us the story of Joseph of Egypt, a young man who was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and unjustly imprisoned. But even in the face of so many trials, God transformed his pain into purpose and placed him in a place of honor. What did Joseph do to avoid sinking into resentment and bitterness? How did he manage to turn things around? Today, we will delve into this incredible journey and discover 7 powerful principles that Joseph teaches us to transform betrayal into purpose. If you are going through a difficult time, this video can change your perspective and renew your faith. Stay with me until the end and discover how God can use even pain to write a story of victory. First principle: trust that God has a greater plan. Joseph had every reason to rebel. Sold into slavery by his own brothers, unjustly accused and thrown into prison. Anyone could have given in to despair. But he made a different choice. He decided to trust God. In Genesis 5:20, he declares, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." What seemed to be the end of his story was actually just the beginning of a greater plan. The pain that took him to Egypt was the same pain that put him on the throne as governor, saving thousands of lives. This teaches us that even when we are betrayed, God can transform our pain into a great purpose. Don't let betrayal or injustice define your future. Trust that God is in control because He has the power to transform the evil that was done to you into a testimony of victory. Second principle: don't harbor bitterness. Joseph had every reason to hold a grudge against the brothers who betrayed him, but he chose a different path: forgiveness. He understood that bitterness imprisons us more than betrayal itself. How many times do we carry wounds that prevent us from moving forward? Resentment binds us to the past, but forgiveness frees us to live God's purpose. Joseph not only forgave, but also blessed those who hurt him. What about you? Are you ready to release the chains of bitterness and experience true freedom? Third principle: continue to be faithful where God has placed you. Joseph could have given in to discouragement after being sold into slavery, but he chose to act with excellence, even in the midst of pain. In Potiphar's house, he worked with dedication. The Bible says in Genesis 39:2, "The Lord was with Joseph, and he prospered." This teaches us that regardless of the circumstances, God honors those who remain faithful. Betrayal and injustice often try to discourage us, but Joseph shows us that integrity and perseverance open doors to something greater. If you are going through a difficult time, don't give up. Keep serving God with excellence because He sees your effort and, in due time, will bring the reward. Fourth principle: flee from sin and maintain your integrity. Joseph faced one of the greatest tests of character when he was tempted by Potiphar's wife. He could have given in, but he chose to honor God above all else. Even though he was faithful, he was unjustly accused and thrown into prison, but God did not abandon him. At the right time, the Lord exalted him, transforming his suffering into purpose. Righteousness may have a price, but it always brings lasting rewards. Choose to remain firm, even when no one is looking, because God sees your faithfulness, and in due time, He will honor you. Fifth principle: wait for God's right timing. Joseph spent years in prison, forgotten by men, but never by God. He could have given up hope, but he chose to trust that the Lord still had a plan. And then, at the right time, everything changed. In an instant, Joseph went from the darkness of prison to the position of governor of Egypt. Even when everything seems stagnant, God is working behind the scenes. His timing may be different from ours, but it is always perfect. Don't despair if the answer hasn't come yet. God is preparing something much bigger than you can imagine. Sixth principle: use your pain to bless others. Even while in prison and facing his own pain, Joseph did not stop serving. He interpreted dreams in prison and helped others, even though he didn't know when his own release would come. In the end, he not only got out of prison, but he also saved his family and an entire nation from famine. In Genesis 45:5, he declared to his brothers, "Now therefore, do not be grieved or angry with yourselves that you sold me here, for God sent me before you to save life." What seemed like pointless suffering was actually part of a greater plan. Joseph teaches us that our pain can become a powerful testimony to help others. What you are experiencing today can be the key to blessing lives in the future. Seventh principle: forgiveness releases God's purpose. When Joseph was reunited with his brothers after years of separation and pain, he did not react with revenge, but with tears and forgiveness. He could have held a grudge, but he chose to see God's hand in everything that happened. Joseph understood that the betrayal he suffered was not the end of his story, but part of a greater plan. The same man who was sold into slavery was now the answer to saving his family. Forgiveness not only frees the forgiver, but also paves the way for God to fulfill his purpose in us. Don't let resentment stop you from living what God has prepared for you. Choose to forgive and see how he can transform your pain into victory. The story of Joseph teaches us that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of our journey. God can use any pain to lead us to our destiny. If you are going through something like this, remember, God is writing a bigger story for you. Leave a comment about which principle touched your heart the most and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more content like this. See you in the next video. God bless you.